Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. We'll mainly be discussing things about RPGs, but we may cover other stuff if I feel like it. Now, without further ado, hang your armor on the wall, warm yourself by the fire, and let us dive into the maddening world of r/RPG-horror-stories. Enjoy. This story is titled, Finally Left Annoying Edgelord DM. This story starts about 2 years ago, and ends pretty much today when I officially ended a toxic friendship. It was with someone we'll call the Rogue. Now, I've told this story before on other subs, but now I feel like bringing more detail, and its final completion. I had known the Rogue for a while, as we met through playing Magic the Gathering, and at a certain point he mentioned that he played D&D. I hadn't played, but wanted to, and together we started at a local D&D club at the school, with me DMing before I had even played a PC. Okay, whoa, time out. Okay, that's a horrible idea. I mean, when you're a PC, you got one character to worry about. When you're a DM, you got the entire frickin' planet to worry about. So if you're new, do not start DMing. I've seen it go bad so many times. Anyway, let's continue. The club eventually ended with school. After it did, I got a little bit more D&D experience, playing and having some fun in a one-shot run by him, in which he was fairly pleasant. We also started listening to the second season of Critical Role at about the same time by pure chance. He kept complaining to me and some of our other friends that he needed some D&D time, saying that he had a campaign idea that he was DMing. Through his complaining, we eventually pressured a friend of ours with little interest to play the game. My character was an elf monk named Enna, who had a deep hatred of drow as they had burned their homeland, and I made sure that he knew that before the next session. He acknowledged it and said okay. Alright, so little aside here, I got an idea for a game. Every time a story about edgelords features drow, take a shot. Anyway, back to the story. The session began with us in a tavern, as we were approached by a drow, called it, take a shot, who offered us 50 gold if we unloaded a ship in the night. All the players accepted. Then it came to me. My character, under normal circumstances, wouldn't accept a quest from a drow, but I could tell that accepting this quest was important to get things going, so I said I wouldn't take a job from a drow, but then he cut me off, yelling, "You have to accept the quest! Just say yes!" I replied, "Please don't cut me off, but gold is gold, and I'm on hard times, so I accept." We had the whole day before the quest, and my character had some other things she wanted to do, so I asked if there was a bookstore in town. I wanted to buy paper to write a letter to the drow so I could leave it on one of the crates, but I didn't say it at the time, only saying, "I need paper." To which he replied, "I know what this is. Stop ripping off Caleb," the bookish wizard who is always going to the bookstore from Critical Role. This wasn't the last time he yelled at me for ripping something off either. We did the quest and moved the crates without question, ending up burning the ship after getting attacked on it, and ended the session somewhat peacefully. Yeah, we peacefully committed arson. Alright, back to the story. Though I was a bit annoyed at having been cut off multiple times by him, trying to find time for another session, and he came to me privately to tell me that he didn't have anything for the campaign. Yes, the campaign which he talked so highly about, planned beyond the next session, and asked if I would DM. I had some ideas for a campaign, so I agreed. He then began to eagerly tell me about his character, an arcane trickster rogue. I recognized the character, as he had a very similar character when we had played at an earlier date, and I helped him make that exact character for another campaign he was doing. He also used the exact same character in at least one other campaign, and in one other one-shot, and almost the exact same character in many others. Always the arcane trickster rogue, which he said he loved because rogue is the strongest class, sneak attack is busted, and they're the best, so I always play rogue. Of course, he would brag about rogue being broken every time his character did a bunch of damage, as rogues are meant to do. Okay, so I got one thing to say to anyone who thinks Rogue is the strongest class. Make a strength saving throw. My campaign arc really isn't important to know, because we never got to play any of it. But it took place in the frozen north, and involved the players being on a ship which wrecks from what they find out are not natural causes. He said that he wanted the session to pick up in the same place the last one left off, so I had to get the characters on the ship and heading up north. I began the session with them at a marketplace, where a rich noblewoman, who was going to die in the shipwreck, was looking for adventurers to journey up north and face dangerous threats to the world. Obviously, the players went and accepted a position on the ship heading north, and I gave them time to buy supplies for the north. While other players are buying jackets and stuff, I ask him if he wants to buy anything, but he responds that he'll be fine in the sub-zero temperatures of the extreme north, and doesn't want to spend any of his money anyways. So while the party is buying equipment, he goes off and decides to pickpocket people from the crowd. He pickpockets a bunch of people before rolling a natural 1, and I decide to let the guards try and capture him. He is arrested, but he uses what he calls a rogue ability to teleport between shadows outside of the cell. I wasn't too knowledgeable about the game at the time and let it slide, as he had taken up enough time. But looking for the ability after, I couldn't find it anywhere. Eventually, after what should have taken 10 minutes of shopping, but now has taken up half the session because the party had to plan a jailbreak for the Edgelord, they finally boarded the ship. They were curious about what the noblewoman had planned, but none more so than the rogue, who decided that instead of sleeping, he would find out what she was up to. He tried to sneak into her room at night and stab her, because apparently knives solve all of his problems. But she had important info to give, and wasn't going to reveal it from dying. So I had her notice and dodge before using a powerful spell to create a big show. She revealed a bunch of info the next day, and I had the ship stop at a castle along the way to get more supplies. I named the castle Winterfell, because I was reading A Song of Ice and Fire at the time, and just wanted to stick it in there. Then I was berated by him for ripping off Game of Thrones. Thanks to him trying to murder a stranger and being arrested, the session was almost at a close. So I threw in a small random encounter before having a shipwreck happen, leaving the party stranded on a field of ice with a mysterious light in the distance, while being pursued by zombies. They should have been halfway through at the latest, but then the session ended. All of this was pretty frustrating for me, but I didn't voice any of it because I'm pretty introverted. The next Monday, he saw us all and said, "We should schedule another session soon. We just shouldn't let OP DM because she's terrible at it. Maybe I will. I had a lot more for the campaign." Right in front of my face. He elaborated by saying that they had got nothing done in the session and I had overpowered NPCs attack him with no provocation. We had another session DM'd by another person, who we'll call the Bard, who ran a fine if straightforward session about us fighting a werewolf. The game fell off, but we decided that on Halloween we should have a high-level one-shot, which I offered to DM, but was denied, him pressuring the Bard into doing it instead. Though she knew very little about the game as a whole, and basically told him everything, and had him verify everything, only coming up with the loose story and running the game herself. The rogue became increasingly edgelordy and toxic out of game as well, and eventually I decided to end the friendship because I had had enough. Occasionally, I get tempted to invite him to a game, as he is one of the few people I know who plays, but I don't think I ever want to play in a game with him or that rogue again. End of story. Guys, I'm not ripping off Game of Thrones, okay? You're just going to a place called Winterfell and fighting zombies in the frozen north. They're not whites, they're zombies. Quit it, guys. Okay. All joking aside, the rogue is absolutely a bastard. But I don't think the entire situation falls on his shoulders. Just a vast majority of it. What we see here is an inexperienced DM dealing with a manipulative problem player. The signs are all there that OP was inexperienced. For instance, she was a DM before she was ever a PC. There are multiple references to Critical Role, and she repeatedly uses ideas that aren't entirely her own. Now, these aren't the mark of a bad DM, just an inexperienced one. Now, before you go ahead and scroll down and dislike the video for me being an Edgelord sympathizer, hear me out. OP is not in the wrong here, but her lack of experience left her ill-equipped to deal with the crap the rogue was trying to forcefully shove down her throat. But it sounds like OP finally stood up for herself and told the rogue to get lost, which is an excellent step. Confidence is the first step to becoming a great DM, and I'm sure OP is already on her way to improving. Anywho, I would like to thank all of you brave adventurers for joining me today, and I hope to see you all next time in the Den of the Drake.